Welcome to our session. My name is Cheryl Perkin, and I am Course Content Initiatives Manager at the University of Arizona Libraries.
And I'm Elizabeth Kaminsky, the Course-Driven Acquisitions Coordinator. Today we're focusing on our unique relationship with our campus bookstore and how we work together to increase student savings.
Okay, so today we're going to provide insight into our Course-Driven Acquisitions program, our working relationship with the University Bookstore, which is now known as the Campus Store, and a quick look at our impact. So for context, the U of A has over 45,000 undergraduates and 11,000 graduate students. We're a Hispanic serving and a land-grant institution. And we do want to acknowledge that the U of A is located on the traditional homelands of the Tohono and Pasquayaqui tribes.
So 14 years ago, the library dean and a couple other librarians developed a textbook affordability program where the library and bookstore would work together to reduce student textbook costs. The partnership got approval from Faculty Senate, which is a shared governance group, and the Vice Provost of Academic Affairs. And by 2012, the library and bookstores were working together. There were definite growing pains as the scope of work was developed before arriving at our current model, which includes working together on the campus store's equitable access program.
So some libraries may view a bookstore's equitable or inclusive access program as incompatible with their vision of textbook affordability, but because we have a campus-run and owned bookstore, we've had the unique opportunity to create a vision of affordability together, which is kind of a unique situation. And in 2023, we assisted with the launch of their equitable access program, of which library licensed ebooks are a critical component for cost savings. The circles highlight all the ways we work together toward affordability, and we can easily summarize the work by saying that communication and transparency are vital to our relationship as collaborators. And so you can see on the right-hand side, we each have our own separate processes that we all do independently, but together we work very symbiotically. So our challenges and successes present themselves in each of the areas you see here. With the campus store, we approach communications and relationships through intentionality, frequent check-ins, and data analysis. This allows both organizations to make adjustments and analyze current practices. So admittedly, and I think you all probably recognize this too, it's hard to get in front of students and instructors because they're everywhere and they're nowhere. So we constantly are reevaluating our approach and messaging together. We've had a lot of successes, but have found that refinement is critical, and reviewing campus feedback and user habits allow us to improve our communications and our relationships both internally and on campus.
Our partnership together ensures that when ebook access issues come up, which they always do, both parties know how to help troubleshoot. And when there's a widespread issue with a specific library platform, we keep the campus store informed so they're not caught off guard. And so we used to get weekly spreadsheets from the campus store, which included all adoptions, both old and new, and it was extremely time consuming to find just the new adoptions, and this limited how often we could work on these lists. Now we get just the new textbook adoptions daily and add them to a shared Microsoft Teams spreadsheet, which has been a game changer for us because the campus store can see what we're working on in real time, and it's now a manageable part of our work. And in the spirit of collaboration, the campus store integrates library ebooks into VitalSource for us, and we assist with their auditing process. Data collection has been a tough area for us for quite some time, and it wasn't until this past year that we had the time to focus on it.
So the data you see here has been made possible with the help of our friends at the campus store. Their data from their system is extremely robust and provides us with a lot of data that we would be very difficult to find, such as instructors saying no text required on their adoption. So we follow up with those kinds of instructors. Our potential savings that you see here is based on actual course enrollment per course multiplied by the digital list price of the library title. And we do want to give a shout out to those of you in the universe who have started this work and set the stage. It's been very inspirational for us, so we're working toward that goal.
We reached out to some folks that we've worked with for a few years and to get testimonials, and the responses went above and beyond what we were looking for. People appreciate our reminders to submit their adoptions, our dedication to sharing information on how to use ebooks effectively, and overall students and instructors really appreciate our efforts.
Okay, so what's next? With our well-established workflows and communications with the campus store already in place, we can now focus on our broader objectives. So for the first objective, we're hoping to be able to lower the flat rate, which is $250 a semester. Probably unlikely because publisher costs are rising and the rate is already fairly low, but we want to continue instructors to adopt free and low-cost materials nonetheless. So we want to try to think about how can we convince instructors to move toward those free models in order to increase savings while balancing their academic freedom. Another question is how can we work with university groups and departments to spread awareness of our affordability initiatives, which is sometimes very narrow on campus in terms of visibility. And finally, we want to expand our data collection and analysis projects so we can share the potential impact of affordability to our campus departments through visualizations.
We hope that what we've shared can inspire other libraries and bookstores to work together to support textbook affordability and student success. It requires persistence and good communication, but the benefits to campus are multifaceted. Thank you.
Minutes. I used to work for a provost who would make 30-minute meetings and said it's going to be 15 minutes, and then it was actually 6 minutes. So I've done this a lot. Our core of our textbook affordability is really based on a team-based course review process. So in our strategic plan for our institution, which is completely online, faculty distributed all over the country and the world, we work together with our instructional designers, and we have decision support ourselves, academic support, Empire Online, our instructional designers. And we've leaned into this. We got rid of our liaison program and focused on courses. That drives collection development. It drives everything that we do related to providing access to content. This required us to play some different roles with as librarians. So librarians, at least at our institution or institutions that I've worked at before, you don't really get to work in depth as a team with faculty on assignment development, talking to them about what they should be using in their course. We're doing all of that. We give them options. We map learning objectives. We map the table of contents for their textbooks. And we're really an assertive but a positive partner with them. And this has been something that we've used to also talk about what the other things beyond just cost savings that we can do. We've done some focus groups of reducing equity gaps, et cetera. So we have all of that data pulled together in a team-based process. So we do a lot of this. Our instructional designers, they outnumber us 7 to 1. There's 50 of them, 7 of us. So it's a real struggle for us, but we've leaned into this. We do 60 in-depth course revision projects or development projects every semester. We're hoping to get around 100, 125. So that has required a shift from working in a silo to cross-functional teams. And it's been a lot of change in just a year and a half. And it's really good to see the outcomes and the positives that we get from this. But we also use this for what we're doing for journal subscriptions, what we're doing for ebooks, other things like that. So this has led to an expansion of what we're able to do with course affordability. So we started out, we weren't heavily embedded, and we didn't focus on working with our bookstore. And we got about 31% of every single course we offered for that semester. And then you look at this semester, from 100 level to doctoral courses, 67.5% of our courses we had the textbook or it was OER. So I'm also in charge of OER. That's usually about 9 to 15% of every single one of our sections, and the other 52%, we're licensing ebooks. So it's a little bit easier for us to do this data review because we put all of this information into our student information system banner, because this is shown to students when they register. Our primary outreach that has been most effective is we work with advisors, which we call mentors at our institution, and say, if you have a cost-conscious student, tell them to go to one of these, an OER or a no textbook cost course. and 2/3 of our courses are that, and get them to register so that those enrollments go up, and then that puts some indirect pressure on faculty if they have something that we could move them into. So some of the challenges, I know some of the others talked about all of the data that you need to manage. I've definitely worked a lot on those processes. It's arduous. A lot of the research indicates that's one of the biggest barriers. But the biggest barrier that we could solve was, most libraries say, we're not going to buy anything but unlimited ebooks. And I'm like, that sounds like something I would like to test, right? And I'm in charge of the budget. So if we overspend our budget, I'm the one responsible, right? So we just started leaning into 1-user and 3-user licenses. We used to get 3 or 6 licenses for like 100 seats of a course, 200 seats. And we said, let's just see how this works. And we actually found that we weren't using it enough. So we only do 1-user licenses now. And then we changed our settings so that up to $1,500, it's completely unmediated upgrade. We've been doing that for 1.5 years, and we've had 0 upgrades. Just looking at this, it's a lot of work to determine the percentage of your courses that are affordable. We're at a turning point, and what we want to do is look at our ultimate goal, which is inclusive access that is not putting the cost directly on the students, but the institution pays it. We've done things like working with our foundation to get basic needs grants for textbooks, and we're working on that to try to get some either fragmented or distributed inclusive access that the institution pays for. So that's what we're trying to do as the long-term goal. Thank you.
Hey, so good afternoon. My name is Rich Goss. In this capacity, I am the subject librarian for our health management department. I've got a lot of other hats. My colleague Sarah is our acquisitions librarian, does a lot of we work closely together. We've also got another colleague we work close together because we actually manage through demonstrating the value of the textbook affordability to get the provost to hire a librarian position for textbook affordability and student success. So these are the aspects we'd like to touch on over the course of this presentation. The stakeholders is really important in terms of getting the faculty involved, because I don't see how you have success without having the faculty involved, because they're the ones choosing the textbook for their class. And changing the textbook to a new textbook is a new course prep. And so there's a lot of work involved. So we had to figure out what's the value to them. One of the values is if all their students, instead of waiting 4 to 6 weeks into the semester before all the students in the class actually have the textbook, are reducing the 0 cost. That's the big benefit. Also, the students are very appreciative of the faculty who make the effort to get 0 cost textbooks. And so their end of semester reports, evaluations from the students tend to be good. We also had a history faculty who was early adopters with an OpenStax, and his section of the course filled up before anybody else's sections filled up. There were some sections that ended up getting canceled. Gathering the data is important to make the case, particularly in terms of cross campus, because there's not 0 cost to this. So getting the upper administration to provide support, like getting the position created, also getting the library to recognize that the time and the dollar value for purchasing the library ebooks, there's some there, but we benefit from that. This is our campus-wide numbers. And you'll see in 2021, there was a huge jump. It's hard to read the numbers of the date, but that's that jump. And I'm going to look at the one department I was dealing with, which accounts for a big chunk of that. We start off with the low-hanging fruit, which is identifying the books that we already own that they've already selected. So we're just letting the faculty member know that we have the book, let your students know about it. The next step would be books that you've selected that we don't own, but we can purchase it, and are you still going to continue using it? And then those other conversations. So I had a faculty member in 2018, that early adopter from one of those, and in 2020, she approached me and said, this is great. I would love to do it with my class that has 3,000 students a year in it. They're currently paying $160.50 a piece for that. And I'd love to bring this down to 0. And she gave me 3 titles, the one she was using and 2 others. I couldn't get any of those 3. I went into our ordering system and found 8 titles that she could choose from. She said, I know that author. Let's look at that one. She said, we'll do that. We've been doing it for 4 years. And in 1 year, we jumped from $50,000 in savings from this one department to $400,000 in savings. And $300,000 of that was from that one course with the 7 sections with 1,300 students for the fall semester, 3,000 for the year. And that was that, this is one department. We went back to the department and presented to the department, and the next year we had 19 faculty. We jumped from 8 faculty in that department to 19 faculty participating in this. So that's where the success has been. Sarah's going to talk about how we then reach out in terms of troubleshooting and helping the marketing.
Yes, so the next step then is making sure students know about these books and making it as easy as possible for faculty to explain to students how to access these books, how to find them, how to use them. So we found that you really do have to over-communicate. You have to put this in every single possible place, including the bookstore. So we have, we have a page that explains to faculty how this works. We have a library e-textbook portal that our textbook affordability librarian has created that is wonderful and beautiful, and she will, once a book is adopted and being used, she will put it in here to make it very searchable, easy to use. We also make sure that it is in the bookstore with a note that says to students, hey, this is available for free. You do not have to buy it. You'll see, though, they still do try to sell it to them, of course. So now we have this kind of like dummy book that gets added to the bookstore so that it can actually count as a zero-cost textbook and count as $0. And then in the catalog, courses are tagged as zero-cost textbooks, so that helps promote it to students as well. Our textbook affordability librarian has also created tutorials about, hey, this is how you're going to use this. And this in particular has been helpful because we found with this particular title, the default checkout date for the whole ebook was 21 days. Which just so happened to fall, if they checked it out at the beginning of class, it fell right when they were taking a big exam. And suddenly they didn't have their textbook anymore. Nobody understands this. Nobody understands how e-checkouts work. So I had to go into the admin and kind of fiddle around and see, okay, what do I have control over? And I was actually able to change that checkout period to like 150 days or 180 days or something like that, to extend it to the whole semester, which helped. We now have Leganto, which is another big piece in communication and getting the materials directly in the Canvas course, directly in front of students. Again, this also includes faculty, and you can create their whole reading list there, which is great. These are the key takeaways here. You want to make it as easy as possible. You want your faculty to be your cheerleaders to their colleagues so that you don't have to do all that work yourself. And also, you're not going to be able to get everything. You're not going to be able to find everything. So don't get too discouraged, but if you have questions, let us know. We're always happy to talk.
Hi, so my name is Miranda Fair. I'm the Publishing and Open Scholarship Librarian at Towson University. We're a mid-sized university located in the Mid-Atlantic region. We have just under 20,000 students, most of them undergraduate with a few thousand graduate students. And we're kind of in an interesting transition period where we've been historically a teaching university, but we're working towards R2 status. So we're like a teaching university doing research university activities, which is probably how we ended up with our very tiny publishing program. We also do not have a university press. So this is kind of the main publishing activity on campus. So to just talk about library publishing in general, what we have currently is like 2 journals in our very tiny portfolio. One's a student journal and one is a faculty journal, which I'll talk a little bit more in depth about. But kind of why do it? It's an alternative to larger publishers. I would say an alternative and not a competitor because they're not really doing the same thing, right? So it's like an academy-owned way of publishing, a way to support open scholarly communication, but it's also something that's going to have like a very different portfolio than a large publisher. So it's a good candidate for publishing like non-traditional scholarship projects, maybe digital humanities projects, things that maybe don't like have a home necessarily in traditional publishing. They also have to be done on a much smaller scale. And you can also, like some journals that maybe have left their home at another publisher are looking for a new place to be. In our case, we have one journal from an affiliated faculty member, which I will talk about. So it sounds nice, but it's probably like not that straightforward. So I'm also on a campus that isn't super enthusiastic about open. The most I get to talk about it with people is when I get an email that says, hey, can you pay my APC for me? So part of it's been trying to get people to feel more enthusiastic about open as a project. Thankfully, I don't suffer from lack of support from administration. They're very supportive of this, but that is something that I can imagine happens on a lot of campuses. Also, lack of existing infrastructure. So while we might have like an institutional repository or like a WordPress subscription, they're not necessarily specific platforms intended for publishing. And so a lack of resources, and in my case, a lack of experience, but we learn as we go. So some things to think about early on, and this can be helpful in convincing others who might need to ask for resources, is how the project fits in with mission, goals, and values, how we might identify what's a good candidate for a pilot project, and then what kinds of new technology we might need to consider. So thinking about organization values of your institution or our institution, and like what the professional values are more broadly, is having like broad, free, open access to information. There might be ways that this type of project fits in with goals or strategic plan, or like a way to connect with the community when you're working with your publishing partners. So these types of things can be helpful in convincing stakeholders. Examples, this is from our library's list of values. Open and free access to knowledge seems sort of like the big obvious ones. But also thinking about like information that's created by our faculty members who are maybe putting out a journal as part of a grant project. Like that's sort of a state and local resource in a way, if you think about it. And that it is also supporting information needs, not only in like consuming information, but as information creators. And it's working towards goals of collaboration, and I would say risk-taking sometimes. So some good ways to identify pilot partners, some questions to think about really is if you're looking for internal or external partners. If internal is available, that's good because it's already someone you can work with. What kind of type of work they want to publish, and like whether it's possible to do that or not. Some things I've learned are really complicated is like audio and video files, because not every platform supports that well. Looking at student work or faculty work, student work can be kind of an easy, low stakes way to test this out, because not all student journals last a very long time anyway, unfortunately. If you have any open champions on your campus, those might be good people to consult, and if there are any potential funding partners, or in what ways they might be potential funding partners. So our like faculty-led journal it's a brand new journal, so we published the first issue of it earlier this year. It's an internal partner, so I kind of had to learn the process of how this would work along with the journal's editor, who we were teaching each other the entire way, trying to figure out how to get this journal out. We also use a grant model, so basically they were establishing this new journal as part of a grant, and what we have in part of our agreement with them is that like they write the library into the grant, that we get a certain amount of money, and that afterwards we would absorb the hosting costs once the life of the grant had ended. And another thing to figure out is division of responsibilities. So some things that I didn't think I was gonna have to think about, that large publishers don't have to think about, is like who's doing copy editing, or who's doing like the page layout, which it ended up being a lot of graduate student work, but these are things I didn't think about in advance. And then in choosing a platform, going with something proprietary, which is going to cost more money, versus something open source, which is going to cost more like person power to run. These types of things can have a learning curve, which does take some time. In our case, we used Open Journal Systems, so it's OJS. There is good documentation available, thankfully. And then last, as far as like outreach, it can sometimes be challenging to reach audiences using like the discoverability tools like DOIs that are available to us. We also have a grant seekers menu on our on a library webpage that explains to others who might be interested how they can partner in publishing with us. And basically, it can be done. If I can do it, you can do it too. I failed to put a slide with my email, but I can share that if anyone's interested. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susan Rudison-Myers. I am the director of the Marie Burgess Library at Spartanburg Methodist College. And to shift gears, I'm going to talk about instruction. And during this presentation, Escape the Ordinary, I'm going to briefly go over how students engage in hands-on activities to learn how to navigate the library and all of the library systems. Plickers It's something I learned about at a faculty in-service, and it was brought by a professor who went to a conference. You hand out the shapes to the students, and the students look at the shape, and the letters A, B, C, D are around the shape, and the student turns the shape so the letter they want is facing up, and you just hold up your phone and scan the shapes. It is very quick, and as you can see, you get a chart here that shows who answered what. You do not have to have a roster of students, but of course, if you did, you could track their knowledge of library skills over time. And the graphs, of course, give you a quick visual for what they answer. I love dynamic presentations. I've used Nearpod and Genially before. Dynamic presentations keep students engaged because you can have interactive elements. For example, you could click on the verses and have a pop-up message, have it jump to another section in the presentation, play music, and more. Nearpod and Genially also give you a bank of quizzes and surveys, and you can integrate these as you're presenting or have them at the end as a wrap-up or a quiz. And yes, I know that looks kind of cutesy, but the college students love doing these racing games where they can see if they can be first to answer them correctly. Scavenger hunts, I'm sure you've done these before. They allow students to engage in active learning, which help them learn and retain the skill. This is a just-in-time activity. Students learn the necessary skills they need right when they need them. It can be a quick activity, so you can just do 3 questions, and it usually lends itself to focus on recall rather than application. Speed dating. Oops. Oh. Okay, sorry. It's not on the right thing. All right, oh, sorry, I got lost. So Kaylee took the TV show Amazing Race and created an orientation based on the concept. It's an advanced version of the scavenger hunt. Students evaluate and think critically. They use their higher level thinking skills. They work as a group going from area to area. And Kaylee ran this on her own, but of course you could have student workers and staff be involved. So they come get their clue, they rip it open, they race to complete the activity, whether it's putting a citation together correctly or finding a book. They come in, they get their passport stamped, and then they get their next clue, and they really enjoy doing this. Speed dating. This started as a speed dating with a book concept. It is also called book buffet or book tasting. I use this as a high school librarian for getting students exposed to different genres. Students spend about 5 minutes looking at mystery books. They have a timer go off, they go to the next table, and they're evaluating the books as they go as to whether they would date them again or not. I also use this with English classes at the college. And then I shifted it to look at search engines. So I had the same questions, and they went to Google, Brave, and some other search engines. And I incorporated music. So as they were moving from one table to the other, yes, I was singing The Love Boat at them. I had Fire tablets, so students didn't have to worry about bringing their own device. There was also a little bit concern about privacy, especially when using Google and some of the other search engines. And I had a whole class analysis at the end. So each search engine had its own sheet. And I had the swipe left, swipe right idea, where if they didn't like the search engine, they swiped to the left, and if they thought it was useful, they would swipe it to the right. And of course, they were not only analyzing and evaluating each search engine, but they were comparing them at the end. For banned books, I partnered with Dr. Bethany Perkins, an English professor. I taught students about banning, censoring, and the history of banning books. I showed them how to navigate the catalog and databases to find titles and learn more about banning and censorship. They took the knowledge and worked in groups to read a book that had been banned or challenged, and then created displays using entire bookcase and discuss their books. So thank you. Here is my contact information if you'd like to reach out and learn more.
That was awesome. Let's give everybody another hand for staying within the 6 minutes, like no problem. Y'all did not even need me to be keeping time because you're all so good at keeping in that 6 minute window. So we have about 10 minutes for Q&A, and we have a couple of us who can walk around with the mics if y'all have questions for any of our wonderful Stopwatch panelists today.